Um, good afternoon, my dear students, and I think some professors are also here. So, this is a interesting topic. Generally, we find in colleges, etc., when we invite somebody, if he's a technical person, maybe 50% of the house will be full, but if it's a person from HR and he's talking about employability, in asking questions as you were talking, when you were talking about the Papita story, with the lady which narrated just before. We will close this, and there is a promise our panelists have made that if you ask a decent question, you will get a job right here, right now. We have people from TCS and IBM who recruit, I think, in truckloads. So I think that promise is not a blank promise. I think that's possible. Okay, so there are 2-3 things which I wanted to start with. One is when we were having our discussion, before the panel. One of the things which came out again and again is the issue of attitude being very important. And once again, today when Rajiv from NASSCOM was talking about, he said how the attitude was important, and even Deepak, when he was talking about it, again, I think mentioned about how the attitude is important. I had heard a story which I think about 5-6 years ago in one of the seminars, and it stayed with me. It's about 2 persons who, both of them, they were working in the army. They were working in the army, and then they retired, and army people retire quite early. And one of the persons, he started a company, and the other person was not doing anything. Then he said, okay, why don't I come and join you? And he said, okay, you come and join me, and he started working for him. And it went on for some time. And then one evening they were sitting together and talking about their old times and all that. And this person who was working, he started saying, look at the irony of things. Both of us started in the same place. Both of us are working in the army at the same rank. Both of us are going together and doing all that. And look, today you are my employer, you are my Malik, and I am your servant. Look at the irony of the whole thing. So this person did not say anything, but he said, look, I will tell you one thing. I will remind you of a story when we were working together. There was one evening when we worked a little late until about 7 o'clock, and we were returning home to our offices, returning from the office back home. And then on the way, suddenly you remembered that we didn't switch off the lights of the office. And I said, okay, why don't we go and switch off the lights? He said, how does it matter? Army is such a big thing, and 1 day of extra electricity bulb, how much will it consume that we have to go back? But I told you that, no, I have to go. You said, no, my family is important, I have to go back. So you went home, and I went to the office, switched off the light, and came back. Just to tell you that in those days, I thought I owned the army, and therefore I should not waste electricity. In those days, you thought you were working for the army, and today, I own my own company, and you still think you are a servant, but I still think I am an employer, I am the owner. So there is a big difference in the attitude. Even when I was a servant, I was the Malik, and when you were a servant, you were the servant, right? The attitude matters. And I think our panelists will throw some light on that aspect, very important aspect. The second aspect is, this is something which I read a couple of months ago, in a book, which said the people who have actually succeeded immensely, right? Immensely who have succeeded. People like Bill Gates, the fellow who wrote the Unix code, the people like Beatles who became very famous, or you take a sportsman. Each one of them, they have spent at least 10,000 hours of their life on that trade before they actually became successful. So they were talking about how Beatles, they were actually performing in the clubs in UK, in Germany, in various countries, and before they came out with their own record, which became very successful. And how Bill Gates and this programmer, they were stealing time from the mainframe computer and writing codes and as students, and by the time they got their opportunity to in a company, they have actually written 10,000 hours of code. And so it's a idea which, I found is very interesting. So as students, as of today, we actually have a lot more opportunity than people of a previous generation, like people like us and maybe the generation before that. And so getting 10,000 hours of writing code is perhaps much easier today than, let's say, if you say when I was a student, whether you could do it or not. It's so difficult. Are we using that opportunity for this purpose? That's another aspect which I wanted just to highlight. And the third one, which is again a very interesting thing, in a book it's read, I don't know how far it is true, but it said that for success, not only your talent counts, but also the luck counts. So one example of that luck is that most successful IT entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and a whole lot of people, they were born between 1954 to 1959. That is a period when they were born. And people who were born before that, they didn't become great entrepreneurs like them. And the people who were born after that, again, did not become great entrepreneurs like them. Why is that so? So they found that there was a period when these microchips, Intel chips, 4044 and 8088 and all those kinds of things started appearing, and all these PCs came, and the window of opportunity was about 5 or 6 years. And that's when Bill Gates started writing code for the PCs, Steve Jobs made his own Apple computers, and so on and so forth. People who were there before that, chips were not there, they started working for IBM and other companies. People who came after that, again, it became a little saturated, so they said, okay, let's work for Microsoft and Sun Electronics rather than start our own company. The timing also matters quite a bit. So there are many issues, and of course the most important issue today is we talk about having entrepreneurs who will start companies, but if you start companies, you also need people who will work for you, right? You need people who can work for you. So employability and creating employment, both of them are very important. We are, of course, here talking about the employability of people. What is it that makes people employable? So we have a very interesting panel here. We have people from IBM and TCS who are major employers. They employ people in thousands in number, thousands and thousands, in fact lakhs of people work for them. And their perspective will be a very interesting perspective. And we have Aseem, who runs a assessment center. In fact, he does the testing for employment. So his perspective will be also very interesting. And we have, of course, from RE Software, who is also will talk about the employability aspect. So we will start with, I will give about 5 minutes to each of our panelists to give their opening remarks, and then we will go on to the discussion part of it. And meanwhile, please pay attention and be ready with questions. If the question is interesting enough, you have a job. The certificates are right here. So, so we'll start with Kushal. Okay.
Okay, fine. Good afternoon, young friends. The first point that I would like to make, since our theme over here is enhancing employability, I would say that the problem today is not so much about employability. I mean, I would say not with employment, but employability. That means even in hard times, there are a lot of jobs, but it is difficult to find out who fits into those jobs. So how do you make yourself employable? That's the question. Now, for that, you need to know what do in particular, IT industry needs. So I would rather say that, most of the students may have the idea that it is nothing beyond coding. It is just about developing programs. But I would say that the perspective is much broader. We do develop products based on software, but we also provide services like, say, information security management services, infrastructure management services, and overall, we implement total business solutions for customers. So we are basically, our mission is to help the customers achieve their business objectives. Now, what do recruiters look at? 3 main points I would like to say: learning, skills, and attitude. So when we talk about learning, it's not so much about how much you have cumulatively learned in your college days, but really how well you have learned. So if there is, this industry now has become multidisciplinary. I mean, unlike those days when I joined this industry, when even the word IT was not there. So today, we recruit people from different streams of engineering, and even beyond that, MBAs, science graduates, and so on. So what is the common denominator? The common denominator is that whatever you have studied, you must have your fundamentals very strong. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. Your fundamentals must be strong. You must have a very good logical reasoning power developed during your learning. You must develop a wide perspective, and you must have developed the art of learning. That is what we look at, because you have to learn a lot of things on the fly when you are in industry. If I were to stick to what I learned in my college days, I would have been nowhere today. So what we essentially look at is how much one has developed the capability to collate information and analyze. As far as skills are concerned, of course, we don't like dumb and knowledgeable people. These two things actually don't go together. One cannot become knowledgeable if one is dumb, because he or she has to interact with the external world, no matter whether in whichever walk of life he or she is. So, of course, communication and presentation skills are very important. As important is the basic design perspective that is characteristic of all engineers and even scientists and maybe management students. That is innovative power. Basically, how you assimilate your knowledge, make its own, and apply that knowledge to solve practical problems. And finally, as you grow up in the industry, you have to lead teams. You have to start with working in teams, and then you have to lead teams. So when you join, we really look at how good a team worker you are, and then as you grow, whether you have that capability of organization and leadership. And attitude has already been quite emphasized. I would just summarize by saying that you must have a positive outlook, and don't say that this is not my task, that is my task. And then you must have the spirit of service, and very important is honesty and integrity. That is, you may be an excellent worker, but if you are fudging your medical bills, then you are thrown out of the organization. And lastly, but not the least, you must have a global mindset, not only to be anywhere, anytime at short notice, but also to be able to mingle with people of speaking different languages and of different cultures, and to gel into a multicultural team. That's all I think I would like to say in this short span of time. Thank you.
Now I will request Amalendu to give your opening remarks.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Nayak. Thank you, students. We are here to discuss employability skills issues. Now, we all have some skills. In your college days, you have already learned some of the skills. Now, the point is that how well we can leverage those skills for the employment, or what additional skills you require, or what additional traits, behavioral traits you require for make yourself ready for the employment. Now, from the industry standard, what Kushal was mentioning, that definitely attitude is the foremost important thing. What we say is we recruit for attitude and we train for skills. That's what we say principally. Now, having said that, there are few pointers what we need to look at. Now, one of them is that now you are in your college days, so there is a basic shift in corporates. So it is from college orientation to corporate orientation. So primarily, what we say is from exam orientation to customer orientation. In your college days, you were targeting for giving the exams, clearing the exams, in corporate level, you are finally working for the client. Whatever deliverable, whatever assignments, whatever coding you are doing, finally it is going to client. So the client needs to be happy. What we say is, think of yourself as the customer. So you put yourself in customer's place and you think that whatever deliverable you are generating, whatever assignments you are having, you must do this to the satisfaction of the customer. That's the foremost important thing. There are a couple of points in terms of deliverables. Now, in terms of the deliverables, what we say is, one is meeting the stated and the implied needs. I'll give you some example. Now, you have been given some of the programs which you are supposed to write. What you are doing in your college days, what we are doing normally is given a particular program, so I know what should be the final output. So we are working on that particular program, we are working on the program specs so that the final output is generated. But normally, we do not look at other issues. Those are the final points we need to look at when you are to work on the customer deliverables. Some of them are, now the requirement must be understood. Whatever assignments or whatever deliverables you are supposed to do, the requirements must be understood by you to the full extent. Now then only you can generate that particular deliverable in an efficient manner. What we say is, like there are certain examples. Now a program is written. Now since at a customer location, this might be run for maybe millions of records of data. So you need to work in such a manner so that the program is effective. The final result is something which Mr. X and Mr. Y can generate, but the person who can generate in much more efficiently is having the right solution. That's very important. Now here, there are certain example is like the program is checked for, in terms of technicality, like boundary conditions checking, division by zero, whether division by zero is happening or not. Now why at all we are checking this? We are checking this because so that finally we need not to rework on those deliverables. So these are very important. These are a couple of things, and now within this short span of time it is very difficult to cover all the points, but these are some of the minute details we must work on. And definitely one more point is that since we are talking about the employability skills, communication is a big part in it. We need to look at the communication part of it, and wherein we need to check at the business etiquette part, the posture, body language, eye contact. Now these are some of the important traits one must have. Now these are some of the points which I wanted to mention. So thank you. That much. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll request Kaushik to give his opening remarks.
Hello? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Professor. So I think my colleagues have already talked about some of the key capabilities and attitudinal abilities that you need to have. Let me just touch upon some of the parts that I want to highlight. So first is about the knowledge or the skill that you bring to succeed. One thing to be remembered is today the world of business is changing very rapidly. You heard some of the eminent speakers before us. So what defines your business problem is going to change very rapidly, and along with it, the technologies that can make these solutions possible are going to change very rapidly. So what this means is, what you learn when you come into a company will need to be relearned and revalidated from time to time as you go along. And that's something you must be able and willing to do. You must keep a very open mind about changes in trends in technology and be willing to reinvent yourself as you go along. Technologies will change very fast. You may have to work in different areas. So please remember that learning will not stop after the first 3 months of induction. Learning will continue, and you must be able and willing to continue that. And I say this because today in the IT world, we have succeeded a lot. Countries like India have done well. But one area where we are seriously concerned is after a few years, people become generalists. People lose touch with technology, people lose touch with the subject matter, they become general project managers. Now that worked well when IT was just about pushing out code in large teams where we needed lots of managers. Now the world is changing. Now the technologies will be such that they will be delivered in smaller teams, and everybody must be able to relate to the subject matter, to the business. So it is paramount to remind yourselves when you go in that, of course, you will start by going through a learning, but remain alert and make sure that your learning ability survives and stays with you throughout so that you succeed. So that's a very key point. Second, my colleagues also talk about communication, right? So communication is very important because we work for business. We serve business. Something that we are doing is serving to solve a particular problem. So the ability to relate to that problem is very important. And communication is also important because we work in teams. In today's world of IT, you will work with diverse teams across locations, across cities, across countries, and these will be people from different backgrounds. They will speak differently. They will have to be worked with together. They will be in different time zones. So communication becomes even more important. And can you guess what is the biggest area of communication where we IT people from India fail mainly? Any guesses? Which part of communication do we fail in most? It's not about whether we can speak like an American speaks or we speak like a German speaks. The area of communication where we fail most is listening. Indians are very poor at listening. We have problems every time where there are conference calls, discussions, either with clients or colleagues, and the person speaking is so engrossed in his speaking, he or she is not paying attention. If you don't listen, the answers you give are not what was asked for, and you lose your client. That's the obstacle where we face tremendously. So you have to remind yourselves to develop the ability to listen, and when you respond, answer to the question that was asked. Do not answer the question that you would like to answer. Sadly, that's often the case, and conversations don't go very far, be it within teams or with clients. And third, the point of attitude was brought about. That is very important in multiple ways. One is because you're working in diverse teams and with clients in diverse cultures, your attitude must uphold integrity at all times. No matter which company you work for, large or small, you remember the expectations of professionalism are very high. What may be acceptable or permissible in a college environment is not acceptable, right? You have to be upholding the dignity of your profession and the integrity of the company you work for. Second, you will work with people from different backgrounds, right? There will be men and women, there will be people with different abilities, and that is very important. You must respect people's abilities, different ways of working, different styles of working, different ways of communication, different likes and dislikes, because you will work in teams for extended hours under stressful conditions. So the ability to retain that ability to work with everybody else, and which I must say college environments, particularly residential colleges, prepare you very well for. So please retain that attitude of working well with people, recognizing people's differences, and working with them and making it a success. These are the three things I would like to highlight.
Thank you, Coach. You can finally, Aseem, for your opening remarks.
Good evening, everyone. So it's overwhelming being here. I was born in Bengal. My father loved the name Aseem. I was named Aseem. Then for good 8 years, I kept coming back for summer vacations to Calcutta. Last I was here was in 1994 doing my summer training. So I couldn't refuse an offer to be here in what is now called Kolkata. Right? So, employability, the dictionary meaning, I just looked it up. It said gaining and maintaining employment. Right? So a lot of you are beginning your career and you believe gaining employment is the most difficult part of it. I can assure you sustaining employment is the most difficult part of it. All of us would have, seen what happened at Infosys. Many stalwart ex-colleagues of mine were not found good enough to be employed as a CEO of Infosys. So employability is an ever-moving target. You have to change, you have to evolve. Because we are sitting here under the NASSCOM umbrella and speaking mostly to the students, I guess I will restrict myself to talking about gaining employment piece of it. it's extremely difficult. So all my life I was a good student sitting in front benches and could see that back benches were feeling the heat. Today, I guess I am feeling the heat because I'm the last one speaking. Everyone has spoken everything. So maybe what I will do is I'll go a bit impromptu hereafter because almost all my points have been covered. Now, how do you go back and make yourself employable lifelong? Internally within eLitmus, we called it practicing OQS. It's like building your muscle. If you want to build your muscle, you need to go to the gym. You want to build your employability, you need to practice OQS. So O means own, Q means question, S means simplify. So a lot of times we'll get different challenges in life, right? As a youngster in college, you might have a challenge saying that, you know what, I want to publicize my college festival. Great, you got that opportunity. A lot of times I meet techies whom I'm interviewing and I ask them, how did you publicize your festival? He said, we made posters, put it all over the place, we had limited budgets. That's not owning. Owning is, in spite of limited budget, I will make sure that I will have 3x the footfall this year. Owning is going and asking which printing technologies exist. It's ironic that you have promoted your college festival and you don't know about Google AdSense. So when you start owning, you know, it's like if you go back and ask your parents, when I was born, did you think that I will ever go hungry? They will say no. The most poor child can go back and ask this question to the parent and the answer would be no. That is the power of ownership. Like Professor Nayak some time back was talking about this army gentleman who owned the fact that he had to go and switch off the light, right? Moment you start owning, you will start questioning, you will start actionizing. Why this kind of a print? Why not this kind of a print? Do I need to use a print or maybe I need to do a flash mob? And eventually you will go back and simplify and say, my next batch needs to do this, 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 this. So everything which you take in your life, be it you are a mess secretary, you own it, you say I'll serve good food. But serving good food doesn't stop there. There's a APMC Act in India, right? You organized your team's outing, you don't know about taxes in going interstate in a commercial vehicle. So it's very easy. It's very easy to superficially engage yourself with any activity. The key is get deep. Building muscles require going to gym and stretching yourself incrementally every day. One fine day you cannot get up in the morning and become a great guy. As Professor said, Beatles practice music for over 10,000 hours. 10,000 also looks pretty small. It takes at least 4 years of practice to go to an Olympics. It takes 5 years for a mango tree to give fruits. Right? So that's the first principle that you need to go back and practice OQS. It's like Newton's 3 laws. Everything happens based on that. You can't challenge them. The second thing will be discover your instinct. Right? Or what we internally call play to your strength. Now, when I wished you guys good evening, how many of you wished back good evening to me? Can you raise your hands? None. Okay. How many said it's afternoon? He should have said good afternoon. How many said that it's afternoon but I'll still wish him good evening? None. Okay. So if you are meant to be in hospitality sector, if you're in the hospitality sector, you will know that the customer is going and telling good evening, he's wrong. I'll think it's good afternoon, but I'll still tell you good evening back. That's your instinct. Every job requires an instinct, right? Instinct is nothing but a combination of key skills and ability. Sorry, knowledge, skills and ability. You need to have knowledge about that industry, you need to have skills about it, ability. Eventually it develops into an instinct. Monkey's instinct is to climb tree. The skill is to climb tree, but when the monkey is under danger, the first thing he would do is, or she would do is, climb up the tree, right? Now, unfortunately, as a child, we are always told what a person we should be. So, for example, I had a sister, I was good in maths, topping classes, etc., and my sister was also expected to learn maths. You know, my previous boss, Deepak, he told some time back, ki a hare is expected to behave like a tortoise, tortoise is expected to behave like a hare. That's unfortunate part of our whole socio-cultural eco part of being Indian. We are always living the life which our parents, our teachers, our society wants it to be. Throw this out of your head first. If you want to be employable, Trust me, there are more number of jobs, right? I don't know how many of you know about eLitmus. How many of you know about eLitmus? Okay, that's all? So we are one of the largest fresher recruiting company in the country. We make some of the most amazing tests in the world using machine learning, heuristic, artificial intelligence, things which are not possible till 5 years back. Right? So there are more number of jobs, less number of qualified people. Each and every company, if I'm right, is struggling to get talent. So the key thing here is go back and identify what your strength is. Once you have identified what your strength is, play to it. Muscles don't get built in a day. Instinct doesn't come in a year. I don't know how many of you know that dogs still bark to a tiger's excreta, right? Because it's genetically coded to be afraid of them. So what happens eventually is this, that whatever you identify, you need to be good. My in-laws had a family friend whose son loved music. He's a great DJ today, earns crore rupees a week. I can't hope to earn that in a year. He has best of girls as his girlfriends, even at this age, right? But despite his parental pressure, he preferred to be a DJ. Similarly, our Mr. Dhoni, right? I know a lot of you might not like him because what he did to Saurav. But I was as good as him in cricket once upon a time. I didn't have the guts to pursue my dream. I grew up in Jharkhand. Jharkhand had no representation in BCCI. There was quota systems to get there. That's the power of following your dreams, power of identifying your instincts. So if you want to be good software programmers, you don't require great faculty. There's a lot of online course which IIITs, IITs are putting out there. You can go to GitHub. You can go and contribute to a lot of open source to sharpen your saw, to build your muscle. Right? The thing is, once you have built it, the unfortunate part is the interviewer has to play to it. With due respect to all the large companies, I could go back and say 80 to 85% of the interviewers are not capable to take interviews or don't have enough time to assess interviewers. In a day, the large hirers are typically recruiting anywhere, per interviewer is doing anywhere from 20 to 25 interviews. They don't have reasonable time to assess you. So I'll give you a classical example. I was interviewing some guy, I sit on a lot of interview panels. I was bored, and here he walks in and I said, what do you do? I contribute to Wikipedia. The next 20 minutes I was talking to him about Wikipedia. You know, what if I go back and deface Pakistan's blog? What if I go back and do this against one of their cricket players? And he was telling me how Wikipedia handles it. 20 minutes over, he was through. I didn't quiz him anything about technology, and I'm supposed to be one of the rigorous technology interviewers. So that is the power of playing to your strength and then remembering to draw the interviewer to your strength area rather than going back and playing to interview your strength area. A lot of times the interviewer might be, I'm a chemical engineer trained to be an IT guy. I might not know anything about mechanical when I'm interviewing you. So you have to always draw the interviewer into your home turf rather than trying to fight the battle in his or her home turf. So I'll sign this off, the second point of mine, by saying that, you know, all of you have watched 3 Idiots, right? Okay, that's the book. It's inspired on a book written by my batchmate. Incidentally, that book is inspired on somebody like me because I was a low CGPA holder at IIT. As the movie says, Kabil bano, kamyabi khud piche bhagegi. Trust me, companies are suckers for talent. There are more than enough jobs in the market. The challenge is people. Around 40% of positions which come to us, we are not able to fill them. That's the challenge of talent shortage in the country, right? The last thing, which a lot of things, I'll just take another minute, so if that is the thing. Because a lot of reasons the way industry is evolving, right? It's possible to game the system. All the companies will want to believe, I think this is what you guys are sitting here to listen from us, how to crack the first interview. So gaming the system is nothing but that, how to get your first job. So while companies will want to believe that they have a fair system, having been in this place, I can tell you, in most of the bulk recruiters, 70-75% of the hiring is not accurate. Anyways, we are hiring people, you know, like if you go back and look at cricket, 11 batsmen have more than 10,000 runs. Another 191 batsmen have runs between 5,000 and 10,000. 400 batsmen have runs between 4,000 and 5,000. Unfortunately, as IT industry, we need to recruit people who have scored between 4,000 to 5,000 also, and 3,000 to 4,000 also, and there is no differentiation there. So there are enough number of errors which happen. So if you want to hear from me how gaming happens, first thing, go and join the right college. So I have always advised some of my friends, nephews, nieces to leave an admission to a college like Government College of Engineering and go to a Vellore Institute of Technology. Why? Because the companies will go and recruit there. For some strange reason, a lot of companies need to have fixation around colleges they go to. Second is there's a certain kind of questions every company asks, which is very easily available. You can go back and practice it. But would I recommend you to do this? Answer is no. Right? The gaming in the system is happening. 70-75% of recruiting is being managed. But till how long will you manage it? For every 10,000 people who join the IT industry, there's only one CEO position being created. 20 years later, you will not have a job. You either need to move up or move out. We were lucky as a previous generation, 1954 to 59, I think IT, 65 to 72, we were lucky. When we entered IT, there were only people. Today, there are 30 lakh people. Each one of us could be employed with 600 people under us. For this year's batch of 1 lakh people to be employed 20 years later, there needs to be at least 1.5 crore people in the industry. Why? Because you're competing with 2013 batch, 15 batch, 11 batch, 16 batch, 20 years from now. So even if you game the system right now and get the job, 10 years later it will be more painful. So I actually had a guy who walked up to our office and said, you know what, I took your test and I realized I'm not meant for IT. I went and joined L&T. Today I'm one of the best boiler commissioning person in India. There's always a calling which you have. Follow your calling, right? Like as Steve Jobs always signs up saying, stay foolish, stay hungry. Thank you guys.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, thank you, Aseem. Now, I like the starting point that gaining and then sustaining. Maybe we can carry out our discussion in that fashion. So, I have seen students. There was one student last year, he got a job. And then it was found that he has not completed his chemistry lab component, which was done in the very first year. That was there in the very first year. He has not completed it. And then he dragged it on till 4 years. And then he got the job. And when the college said, you know, the employer said, okay, get me the certificate, he suddenly finds that the chemistry lab is not complete because it's there in the first year itself. So I think it's necessary that you have to get your first job, and only then we can talk about, okay, how will I sustain it, right? It will be there in the mind of many of the students. Okay, how do I get my first job? If you are in a top quality college, maybe the first job is more or less guaranteed, right? You may not get what you want, but you will get a job anyway. But if you are not there in a top quality college, even that may not also be guaranteed. So my question to the panel will be that, you know, what should I do so that I don't, when I pass out from the college, you know, I will land in a company to start with, right? I mean, I think that would be an important question from the student's point of view, that what are the things I should do or I should not do? Apart from, of course, how to beat the system, that's another part which you can talk about, but we are not talking about just beating the system, but we are saying, okay, things that we should do and that we should not do. Anybody would like to start? Yeah.
So you mean to say that what one should do after joining a first company?
Even before joining.
Or even
so
before.
How do you make yourself ready for, you know, so that you can get through?
I mean, as someone in the panel has already said that you do a SWOT analysis of yourself. What are your strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities, threats? Okay? And pursue your strengths and build upon, try to, compensate for your weaknesses. Okay? Every person has some weakness, some strength. So you need to, compensate for your weakness and build upon your strengths. So that's one thing. And secondly, I would say, if you have the option, if you have the opportunity, please look at the job that you are choosing to be your first job. if you have that luxury. I mean, one common mistake that everyone does is to look at the offer letter, skip all the pages and just look at one figure, the salary, as if that is of the prime importance. There are companies which may be offering you very high salaries, but have you looked at their job contents? Have you looked at the roadmap of that company? Is that company going to survive 10 years down the line? Do they have a vision? What is the environment like? Can you build an experience, platform when you work in that company? These are the questions you should ask before you choose a company. Okay? And then once you build up your experience, don't run after money, let money run after you. That's what I would like to say. Build up on your experience. Try to develop the knowledge and try to know the environment. This, I think, in my opinion, is the best thing to do.
If I may add, again, if you're talking about getting through your interview and getting into a company, obviously there's no magic formula short of what you may have to offer. I can talk about some things where we see people stumble, and for some of those things it may be too late for you already. We see a lot of candidates who had very poor grades in their 10 and 12 exams. Now, many people may think once I'm into college, it doesn't matter. It does matter. Most companies will have a cutoff. So if you didn't do well, and a very common excuse we hear is, I was trying for IIT, that's why I didn't do well in 12. And the other guy says, I didn't do well in IIT because I was trying well for 12. So you have to have a minimum grade in school, which is probably too late for you now. But in college also, don't leave these loose ends left, like the professor was talking about. Make sure you go through your courses and you have all the check boxes checked. Now, for the interview, when you come as a fresher, there's really not much that you can be asked, but you will be put through a test of your English ability. So the ability to write grammatical English that is appropriate for business is important, right? So don't think it is unimportant. In the interview itself, in some companies will ask you about your subject matter, right? And your subject matter may not be IT. Obviously, it won't be IT. It may be engineering. Make sure that you are able to coherently answer, right? We see many candidates who, when we ask them what project you did, after one or two questions, he said, I didn't do that part, somebody else did it. So clearly, he or she either didn't do anything or doesn't remember. So that shows disrespect, right? You didn't come prepared for the interview. You must prepare for the interview. You must come ready with a story of what you did. And if you can tie it to what you're trying to do, and I think that's what our colleague was saying, try to make a compelling case that these are the things I know, and this is how I think this will help me succeed in your company. People like to hear that you are trying to tie it to what we are trying to recruit for. So whatever you know is what you know. Come prepared. Don't look blank when you're asked about your subject matter. You may be asked about your engineering. There might be someone in the interviewer who is a metallurgical engineer. Don't think they will all be IT guys, right? So make sure you did the right things in college. You come prepared with what you did, whatever you want to highlight, and to the extent possible, try to tie it to the job that is being offered.
Thank you. You would like to add something? Yeah, please.
Also, if I may add, you need to make yourself ready for working on different kind of assignments in the areas of IT. It is not just development only. There are multiple areas like development, testing, maintenance, production support, then this business support. There are a variety of areas, and all are good. So you need to make yourself flexible to work on all these areas. So this I just wanted to add.
Aseem, you would like to give some magic pill?
Okay, I typically don't have a magic pill. I'm a strong believer of hard working. All of you have heard of Abhishek Bachchan? Right. All of you have heard of Aishwarya Rai? How many of you, if you were elder, would have loved to get married to Aishwarya Rai? None?
She already has a baby now.
No, if she was younger, if she was 22 years old and you were 25 years old, how many of you would have wanted Aishwarya Rai? Let's be honest. Right, at least in my age, 9 out of 10 men would have loved to be. Whom did Aishwarya Rai marry? Abhishek Bachchan. Between Kareena Kapoor, Aishwarya Rai, who or Karishma Kapoor? Whosoever.
Kareena Kapoor.
Karishma Kapoor. So Karishma Kapoor didn't agree to marry Abhishek Bachchan, but Aishwarya Rai did. Right? So what I will say is, don't change yourself. You are a beautiful person. First, acknowledge you are beautiful internally. Play to your strengths, right? Don't become what the industry wants you to become. Unfortunately, IT industry is one of the last industries you should want to work. We have extremely poor leadership, poor imagination, where we cannot groom the next generation of people. I'm being extremely honest in spite of being a part of the industry, right? Discover yourself and then play to it. I'll give you examples. We have 2 customers, right? Both of them in data analytics space, both of them have products, and both of them sell to banking industry. Fine. Now one of these companies sell to very large corporates where decision making is not scientific, right? How much ever you'll want to become that, believe that large companies have scientific decision making? They don't. How many of you remember how Pratibha Patil became the president of India? Till 2 days before she was not in the running. So there's a lot of Darwinian motion happening in decision making, right? You need to turn lucky, you need to realize that you don't have to change yourself. So coming back to this example, one company hires people who can speak very well, present to the customer very well because the customer segment is like that. Another company, if you just knew Telugu or Kannada or Hindi and were very dressed disheveled and were the best coder in the earth, they will hire you. Same space, same product lines, same customers. So first what you need to realize is you are beautiful internally. Each one of us have our strengths. Monkey trying to become a tiger or tiger trying to become a monkey is a pointless exercise where we are always pushing our children to be somebody else. Be yourself is the only thing I would say. There are ample number of jobs. There are ample number of opportunities.
Okay.
I would,
Yeah, please.
I would just like to give you one mantra, sharing my own personal experience. At every stage, you just tell yourself, come what may, I can do it. That's all.
Okay. The second question that I would like to ask is, this IT industry went through a boom time for a long time. And then we suddenly saw phases when it suddenly goes down. Like dot-com bust in around 2000 and 2008, Lehman Brothers, what happened? But till that point, people used to get a job in the 3rd year, in the 2nd year. Maybe we thought they'll get a job before they actually get admission itself. So that was the hope at one time. So that is gone. Now, so I joined my education when the times are actually very good, and by the time I pass out, in those 4 years, the economics have actually taken a dive, or it has come up, or whatever. So keeping that in mind, how do we say that the people should prepare themselves for the bad times or the good times?
This is my opinion, others may differ. I would prefer not to look at the times. Yes, of course, one needs to adapt oneself to the times very much. But at any situation, try to come out with your best. So even with your best, you may not get the desired result. But at least you will be satisfied that you have come out with your best. That famous saying of the great man, I should not name, you should know who said it, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. Why is he saying arise, awake? Are we all sleeping? May not be physically sleeping, but they say that in the whole of our life, any human being hardly utilizes 5% of his or her potential. So if we could tap just another 5% more, we can create miracles, believe me. So it is just realizing your fullest potential. Don't look at the world. Realize your fullest potential. You can change the world around you.
Yeah, the reason why I asked this question is, at one time, computer science was the most preferred discipline among all the disciplines. The top rankers will join there. And then there came a time when it actually went down in terms of preference among the students because not enough people were getting jobs. And so when people join the jobs, they thought it's a very rosy stream, good jobs are on the way, etc. And when actually they're passing out, they find very hard times. And sometimes the other way around. You join when things are not good, and when you pass out, actually turns out to be good. So some messages for the students to handle this kind of economic upheaval which happens nowadays, I think more regularly than it used to happen earlier.
I mean, let me just add that definitely the way the IT industry was in the late 90s, those days are gone, and I don't think they will ever come back. So there was a time when anybody who could spell computer could get a job. I don't think they will come back, and that's because the industry is matured. We need people who are committed. Aseem is right, there are so many professions. I mean, unless you have your heart and mind for this IT, you shouldn't force yourself to go just because others think it is right to go. Another attraction which a lot of people used to think is that IT matlab I'll go to America. Those days are gone, right? Because the way the world is going, days of easy visa landing people will not be possible. Secondly, it's not necessary. Clients are able to get services done from remote locations, and that's where the future is. So very few people will go abroad, that too for very short durations. The days of going with your bal bacha, staying for 3 years, those are not there. So whereas what is coming is, and the point I made earlier, the new IT will be servicing more of the front office of the customers, where the difference between business and technology will get blurred. Okay. There was a time when techie people could do just technology, business analysts would do business analysis. That's no longer possible. So you have to be committed to understand the business process, the business function you're solving, keep in touch with emerging technologies, put it together, sell it, solve it, and deliver it. So it will require much more, and the numbers will be less. So I think, and at the same time, the good thing is, because of this bust, other industries are coming up, right? Traditional industries are now popular. Engineering is now held as one of the top jobs. There are the other emerging jobs Aseem talked about. So ask yourself, if you are not sufficiently interested, you shouldn't go into it. There is so much to do in life, right? But if you go into it, expect that you will definitely succeed, but not just by willing. You have to really be able to put in a lot.
Thank you. So the last question I have is, they have been already told me to wind up as quickly as possible. It's for the, the universities are often criticized for not being, the subjects and the curriculum not being industry relevant. What can the professors and the universities can do to, let's say, meet this kind of a requirement? We are obviously not here to train people for the job. Learnability and things like that, which is very important, we are talking about. But nevertheless, we don't want a person who's not absolutely suitable. I mean, we have to have relevance. So some 2-3 messages for maybe the professors and the university people, if you have.
One is that industry participation, I believe, industry participation on these colleges is very important. I mean, if that interaction is increased, I think that will help us a lot. Because now, colleges, I understand NASSCOM is working on this particular area, in working with this particular industry. I mean, the correlation between the industry and this colleges and institutes, so that needs to be enhanced, so that both the parties know that how to minimize this particular gap. I think that's one of the message I wanted to give.
In the same light, I would like to add some specific points. I think both the regulatory bodies and the academia are already coming up with this idea, is that forming a board of studies where curriculum is decided, how research will be done, and etc., where they have industry participation. And then from industry side, we already have this academic interface program, which I am handling in my company, where we go out to the colleges and conduct workshops for both students as well as for faculty to make them aware of what kind of work is going on in the industry, how they should prepare themselves for the industry. So opening up the window to the industry, to the academia, I think that's the way we can go about it.
Maybe